Small town. Damn, that's you strictly. Small town. Damn, that's you strictly.
Ladies and gentlemen, and then there was four. The college football playoff semifinals are set. The only people that think Joe Burrow should be in the MVP conversation are Joe Burrow fans. The kitchen gets hot in Miami and the heat get hotter, and we are back to give you the real in sports on this first show of 2025. I'm your co-host, Small Town EP, joined by Julian, live from New York City, and you are tuned into your number one sports talk show, All Things Sports, brought to you by Small Town Productions. Ticker up top, brought to you by ESPN Bet. June, great to see you in this new year. How have the first 2 days been treating you?
Good, man. Good to see you as well. Good to be back. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to all the listeners. It feels good. You were away on a trip in Mexico, man. You know, we got to catch up on that. We'll talk about that throughout the show and get some highlights from you. But it's been good. I've been relaxing and easing my way into the new year, trying to be clear headed as possible. But the most important thing is that we had a lot of sports going on between, Christmas, the New Year. The month of December has been incredible. So, January, we've got the ending of college football, and February ends the National Football League. Let's take all this time and do right by it and, cover it as good as possible because we're going to get a lot of good games here down the stretch in this college football playoff and in the NFL playoffs.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know what? Let's get right into the college football playoffs. We had a thriller today, but let's take it back a couple of days. Texas does beat Arizona State. Controversial targeting call that wasn't called. June, how do you feel about the no call on that play?
I think it should have been called. It's a missed call, in my opinion. It's never about the refs shouldn't or don't want to be a part of the game or, make the decision. The ref is supposed to call the penalty when there's a penalty. Uh, we can look at 2022 Super Bowl, Kansas City Chiefs, Philadelphia Eagles, and hey, he admitted himself that he committed the pass interference penalty, and they called it. Being here in New York City, I'm not gonna lie, this is driving me nuts here. I hope everybody's okay because the unnecessary amount of ambulances that drive by just to I don't know, get the red light or beat traffic, it's insane. Nonetheless, they called it for the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, the biggest moment. They should have called it for Arizona State, where it was, in my opinion, if Miami committed that foul, that's targeting. If someone on any other team in any other moment that's targeting. So they'll get it right next time. Texas goes on to win. I think Texas is the better opponent, right? For they got Ohio State coming up.
Yes, they do. Texas, Ohio State, in the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, so they're the better opponent, and but I don't look too deep into it. Like at the end of the day, there were opportunities for the game to be won. It wasn't that play that sealed the deal for the game. It was a double overtime thriller. I want to not take away from Texas, and how good they played. And for me, the big thing was Arizona State responding to how they got, kind of punched in the mouth at first. Once that safety happened, I felt like that was the changing point of the game where momentum was like, okay, you know what? We can stop them. We can make a big play. We just got to get something going on offense. And second half, I mean, Scat was going crazy. Quarterback started, making some plays. And you had to imagine he was just thinking about the comments he made earlier in that week leading up to the game, kind of just talking shit to Quinn Ewers. And I loved Ewers' response because he just had the most classy, like, they're such a fun offense to watch, and they're a good team. He's a good quarterback. He's got a lot of talent, but it's going to be fun to play them. And it's just like you do that and then go win in a double overtime thriller where
Yeah.
he ultimately you throw like the game saving touchdown, and then did they intercept him at the end of the game there? Yeah, I believe there was like an interception at the end of
Exception.
the game there. So it was a fun kind of story thing for that Texas ASU. We got a good game, and I'm not too mad at just that targeting call. It didn't ruin everything.
Yeah, I'm actually I'm all for protecting the players, but I'm actually kind of like happy that the refs, kept the flag in the pocket, let them play. Um, we talk a lot about let the kids play and the refs throwing. You were just talking about some calls that could have, may have, could have not been called, could have been called, but were called. Here, neither here nor there. I'm happy that the refs let them play. I am on the other side though, all for protecting the players in a violent contact sport. Double overtime thriller, like you mentioned, only college football playoff game that has been decided by one score thus far. I want to kick it over to the chat real quick. Brill in there saying he thought we died. Never that, bro. We back in full effect in a different mode, for real, for real. Ray Cam in there. Appreciate you for tapping in. Whew, Ohio State manhandled number one Oregon, 41-21. Ryan Days and company, Jeremiah Smith, Fort Lauderdale native. You heard what up, what up, what up. Just 41-21, three scores. Complete. Everyone had Oregon. Everyone saying Dylan Gabriel deserves this moment, and it just didn't live up to it. What does this win mean for Ohio State, June?
They moving on semifinal. They still got to go and beat Texas now, and Ryan Day, you're not off the hook. It was a great win. It was a dem- commanding win, but at the same time, everybody has their day, and it didn't look like it was Oregon and Dan Lanning's day yesterday. Um, they couldn't really get anything going. Ohio State had a lot of pressure up front, and when you mentioned, 5-star recruit, 18-year-old Jeremiah Smith, true freshman out of Fort Lauderdale, it's going to be a long day. This was a game that came down to the wire in, I believe, early November or late October, whenever that was this season. And Coach Day coached an amazing game. Chip Kelly drew it up well. Oregon had a great game, and Dan Lanning ended up having that loophole, kind of thing that helped with the clock situation. But Ohio State won that game. Excuse me, Oregon won that game, and Ohio State could have won that game, is what I meant to say. Ohio State could have won that game. And so it wasn't surprising for me at all for the fact that they won this game or was in this game. It was just, yeah, nobody thought that Oregon was going to pull a 2014 Florida State, right? Rose Bowl against Oregon. Um, it happens though. It's sad because Oregon, for me, I know you asked more about Ryan Day and Ohio State. For me, like I said, they're in the semifinal. His job is still not secure. Secure. I think they still have to win versus Texas to, okay, you know what? We made a national championship day. You can probably stay. But on the other side, Oregon had an amazing season. Flawless, won every game, and for them to have that bye in the playoff and then still come out, extremely flat, it just looked like, yeah, you guys didn't want to win the championship this year, because there's no excuse to have gone down as bad as it was, right? It was
Yeah.
just plays were being made and they were doing nothing about it, and they were getting pushed around on both sides of the ball, and it's inexcusable. So it's unfortunate after a nice season, but we're gonna get some good games here to end this with this Final Four. Um, we got Penn State, Ohio State in a Big Ten, or Ohio State, Texas, and then Penn State versus.
Notre Dame.
There you go.
Notre Dame. And I want to go
Thank
over
you.
to that Penn State and Boise State game where it was just
Yeah,
another blowout. Penn State 31, Boise State 14. Penn State was able to hold Ashton Gentry to the lowest amount of yards from scrimmage all season. That's 104 yards. Longest one was about 20 yards, if I'm not mistaken. He averaged 3.5 yards per carry. How was Penn State able to pull that feat off in itself, June, and hold, potential almost Heisman winner Ashton Gentry to his season low in yards?
it's crazy. 104 yards season low. Like, let's just let that
Facts.
one. Let's
Facts.
let that one chill real quick. I'm not gonna do too much because 3.4 being the worst and 104 yards being your season lowest. I mean, obviously bad timing, right? You don't want to have your lowest numbers, but you played against your best opponent all year. Clearly, because Oregon, they played them early in the season and had a really good game versus them and almost beat them. Ashton Genty went for a great night.
192,
Oregon,
25 carries, 192 that game.
there you go. Oregon doesn't have the front seven that Penn State has, right? And so
Facts.
I think that's all the difference right there. Penn State knew that they can live with Boise State. I think Mason Maddox is his quarterback. They can live with him trying to be the guy to throw the ball. That's not who he's going to be and how he's going to beat you, or how Boise State is going to beat you, I should say. They trusted their guts. They went with Genty, and they got as much as they could out of that. And it just showed, Penn State is a much better team tonight. Um, and when you're as one dimensional, and I don't want to slight them because Maddox has moved the ball, and they have had a fun offense this year. But let's be honest, the workhorse is back there. The touchdowns are there to talk for it. The yards are there. He almost broke Barry Sanders' record. So yeah, they met their match, and they couldn't throw the ball. And this is what happens. Now we're going to see what Penn State is made of, because Penn State, in my opinion, has had a favorable schedule um,
Mm.
all season, and they've won the games they needed to win. Right, cool. But now they got a good test here versus a team that wants to come smack them dead in the lip, dead in the lip. Notre Dame. I talked about this before. You know what? I don't. It's been so long, bro, and we're here, thankfully, with great health. Thanks be to God. But I don't know if I said this on air or if I was just thinking about this in a dream or so. But I was like, look, man, Notre Dame can win this national championship. They can come in this playoff. They got a nice little route. And what they're up against right now is a team that hasn't really been punched in the mouth. Hasn't really the USC battle was cute. It wasn't a tough battle. It
Yeah.
was plays were made kind of battle. This one's going to be tough. There's a big team up front on both sides. Notre Dame is likewise Penn State. I expect Jeremiah Love to run the hell out of the ball, or at least attempt to, right? Because you're not going to lead a game in Riley Leonard's hands. As we saw tonight, there's not much they can do when they play an elite defense. Now, I'm not going to go so far to compare Penn State's defense to a Georgia defense, because that's not the case. But Penn State does have a respectable front, and they can make things uncomfortable for him. So for me, if they can find running lanes, Notre Dame can win this game if they keep it low scoring. Um, they have the momentum, they have the confidence. Penn State, Hey, look, I'm not saying that they've done anything wrong. I just think again, when it comes to who they played this season and the tests they've had to pass, they haven't had the hardest. So for this being their first test, if they win this game, they probably go on to win the national championship, like with the confidence.
Hmm.
So it's like the winner of this game, in my opinion, wins the national championship because of the toughness factor. And I think that Penn State and Notre Dame have more toughness than Texas and Ohio State do this season.
And let's get right.
Real quick, I'm sorry.
No,
Let
you're
me
good.
be very clear. Texas is a tough team.
They
Texas has
look
a
they
very
they
good up
they
front
look
and
beatable, in my
defensive
opinion.
line, but I think Notre Dame and Penn State are tougher than those two teams. That's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think Texas has looked beatable, but they've just continued to find a way to win throughout the season. In my opinion. Let's get straight to that Notre Dame game that we just saw right now. Georgia dominates through the air. Notre Dame dominates on the ground, recovers 2 out of the 3 fumbles that were forced. Notre Dame only had 7 plays ran in the first quarter. The first half, it was like 10 minutes to 20. Like it was just completely
Yeah,
lopsided towards that first end of the first half. Notre Dame, runs that kickback. And from there, it just looked like Georgia couldn't make adjustments. June, how much credit does Marcus Freeman get in this kind of coach off that he managed to call the right plays and the right plays needed to be called? How much credit does he get as a head coach of
I
Notre
mean,
Dame
a
for
lot
this
of
one?
credit, as much credit as he can. He beat Kirby Smart, right? And regardless of the situation, Gunnar Stockton, he's a good quarterback, right? And he wasn't the guy that was planned to be here from the beginning of the season to with season on the line kind of situation. But uh, Georgia is good enough around that to where they can at least compete with a backup quarterback. Now, Carson Beck, being the starting guy, he's been struggling over the last few weeks. And they almost were like, okay, you know what? We're going to the gunner because yeah, he's hurt, but this might be what's best for us. The way he closed out the game before this, it was something to look forward to coming into this game.
I
But
mean, he had 234 yards today. I mean,
yeah, but I mean, it was unproductive yards. Like at the end of the day, they didn't score. They didn't score, and so they did, but they couldn't do anything much,
yeah.
and that's not typical from a Georgia Bulldog team where uh, you're just playing from behind. And that was really how I wanted to get to this. But talking about the Marcus Freeman question, yeah, I think he deserves a ton of credit because at the end of the day, it is Georgia, it is Kirby Smart. They do have that great defense, and they were able to overcome and beat them and on their way to the national championship or at least the semifinal for now. But I did want to talk about how the game just flipped out of nowhere. And once that happened, it was over. Like you could see Gunnar Stockton winning this game, going down 6-3 to over in at halftime. Coming out the second half, Georgia getting a stop or getting them, letting them get 7 or holding them to 3, whatever that scenario coming out of half would have been, it still would have been a surmountable lead to or deficit to have been able to come back behind that defense. But you go and this is Kirby Smart. This to me loss is on Kirby Smart for the simple fact that after you go down 6-3 with your backup quarterback going into the half with 30 seconds left, instead of running the ball, running the clock out, you try to make a miraculous play that he wasn't going to be able to or hadn't made really for the most part of the night. You put him in a position, and this reminds me of Shane Steichen versus the Texans when he had Anthony Richardson trying to throw the ball before the half while we're down and we're inside the 20, They both are Anthony Richardson throws a pick, but Gunnar Stockton gets a strip sack. And you still have 25 seconds on the clock for Notre Dame to score. They go score a touchdown in 2 plays or so. And then you go into the half now like a little Like, yo, what the fuck? Momentum kind of just shifted in the building. We weren't down two scores now. What the hell? And then right out the half, you give up a special teams touchdown. And so now you're just looking at a 20-3 deficit. Like, well, we do have a backup quarterback. And does reality set in at that point where it's like, now he's got to throw the ball. And yeah, that's not easy against Notre Dame's defense. When you're down three scores, it's a different ball game when you're scheming it up. You got ETN running the ball, mix and match and play action. But when you're down three scores and second half has started, you're losing to Notre Dame. Good luck. And so to me, that loss is on Kirby Smart because you put your team in a bad position when you wanted to be greedy to try to get, I don't know, 3 points and tie the game up going into halftime when it's a 6-3 game, couldn't score all half. Kind of put give it up. Give it up. Let's go in there. Let's go in there. Let's talk about it. Let's look it over and fix things. But unexcusable because I understand he only off that possession let up 7 points, but that's a swing where mentality goes down the drain, and that's what we saw. They fell apart in that ending of the first half, coming out of the second half. So shout out to Georgia for having a good season. I wouldn't say great season as far as UGA standards. They lost too many games, and they also put themselves in bad positions during games that they even won, um, and didn't take care of the football enough to say Georgia standard was great. No, it wasn't. So shout out to them for a good season.
You talk about toughness, June, and this is a Notre Dame team today who defensive line versus Georgia's offensive line. Georgia's offensive line was taller by an average of 2 inches and heavier by an average of 50 pounds, and they managed to get past them 4 times for sacks. So you talk about that toughness factor. I mean, I think that stat alone speaks volumes to that factor. Hey,
Yeah.
man, like we said, we got the Cotton Bowl on the 10th, Texas, Ohio State, and the Capital One Orange Bowl live from Miami, Florida. Penn State versus Notre Dame. That will be on the 9th. Plenty of time. We will see you guys before then. Let's take it over to the NFL. June, I said it in the intro. Is people talk about Joe Burrow being MVP? Is there an MVP chance in Cincinnati this season, or should there be an MVP chance in Cincinnati this season? Joe Burrow leading in passing yards, passing touchdowns, and some other
Absolutely not.
statistics.
No, I mean, because you take Joe Burrow off that team, that's not a playoff team.
Oh, for sure not.
You put Joe Burrow on that team, they're still not a playoff team. So no, like we can't give the MVP to a non-playoff team. Like a team that needs two things or three things to go well in week 18. We can't say that that's the MVP. Because there's nothing valuable over there right now. And it's no disrespect. Obviously, you know how much of a fan of Joe Burrow and the Bengals, and I like the Bengals and I support them. Some people may not want to hear me say that, and that's okay. But it's true. You know, I know the MVP's name. I've said his name a bunch of times. We talk about him all the time. He's from around the way.
Word
I
up.
don't think he's going to win the MVP, because we understand how the voters' fatigue works. We understand Tony Romo being on CBS and saying what he said, and how that works. We understand, a lot of perspectives and politics about an award. And yeah, so Josh Allen will be the MVP this year, with that being said. And shout out to Josh Allen. Like, I hate the fact that it's one of these, because whenever it's like, is he deserving 100% of the award? No, but do I get it? Yes. I'm not gonna hate on Josh Allen and be like, yo, watch out. Now, Josh Allen has had an MVP caliber season, and what he's done with the Bills has been nothing short of phenomenal. To be fair, though, when we talk about, you know, who's leading in this statistic, that statistic, passing touchdowns, rushing touchdowns, uh, interception to touchdown ratio, wins, you know, it's like, yeah, bro, Lamar Jackson definitely should win the MVP this year. But hey, it's not the world we live in where where they're gonna give LeBron the MVP 5 straight years, and that's okay. And so if you're gonna be talked about like LeBron James, like yo, you remember how they didn't let LeBron win the MVP 4 straight? I mean, yeah, then yeah, you remember that time where they didn't want Lamar to three-peat the MVP? He's that good, so that's at least something to be proud about. If you don't win it.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Burrow said it himself. He said in a
I
press
forgot we were
conference.
talking about Joe Burrow
No,
starting this
you're
conversation.
good. He said it himself in a press conference. He said, "Hey, you typically have to win your division to be considered for that, and it's not looking like it's going to happen this season." Eh, When when you are spending the sixth most amount of payroll on your offense, I expect your quarterback to, be throwing a bunch of touchdowns and throwing a bunch of passing yards when you got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins on either side of you. Like I expect that. Now, when you're 27th in defensive spending, you might want to even it out a little bit
Yeah,
because I'm not gonna put this whole season on the Cincinnati Bengals defense or say, hey, the defense is the reason he's not going to win, the MVP. But I mean, you're letting up points, bro. Like, and not even just to that, but if I'm not mistaken, I read a stat today that there's three teams. I think there's four, but there's three that I can remember that are 20th or worst in yards allowed on the defense. Right? That's Detroit. You got Jared Goff. What you gonna do about that? As Tampa Bay, you got Baker Mayfield. I mean, he's doing what he has to do.
yeah,
Uh, I think Minnesota's in there, and we're gonna get to Sam Darnold in a second, but they're letting up points too. But their quarterback is doing what the quarterback has to do. There was at least 3 games this year where fourth quarter turnovers by Joe Burrow cost them the game. 3 games I could think of off the top of my head right now. So I hear you. I don't want to word to Nate Perks, Pat Stafford. I don't want to put the nickname on Joe Burrow, but hey, and still they could make the
nah,
playoffs. They could make the
yeah,
playoffs.
that's true. That's
I
true.
could have to eat my words in the beginning
That's
of the
true.
season where I said they weren't going to make the playoffs. They still
Yo,
could
you
make the playoffs.
you doing this? You doing that 27th in defensive spending? You're like, yo, I'm not gonna say this is what this reminds me of.
Misdiagnosed by a what race, what people, doctor, and what hospital, and what media went to. We know I can't say that.
Oh my god.
I'm gonna leave it right there. Oh man, but yeah,
Oh.
you know, eh, but yeah, it's the defense's fault that the Bengals are in this position because they absolutely would be in the playoff picture more. It would be more certain that they'd be in the playoffs than what they're having now with this defense. However, special teams is to blame as well because they have a couple mishaps on field goals at the end of games.
Yo, shout out to the chat going crazy. Bro saying hell no, Burrow. Amen. I guess
Yes.
while I was preaching, Kev's in there. There are two very valuable things in Cincinnati. That's Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I'm going to assume you're talking about, Kev. Um, hey, run back to preseason. EP eating those things. Hey, bro, chill because if Cincinnati makes the playoffs, these motherfuckers will be in my
Yep.
mentions expeditiously.
Yeah.
Expeditiously. I was ready to talk big cash shit when they were about to lose to Denver. I'm not gonna lie. I was ready to what? And I couldn't even type nothing in the chat when the game was over. I was kind of tight. Man. Hey, I just mentioned Sam Darnold. There's a lot of things going on in Minnesota, right? You got JJ McCarthy coming back from the ACL after this season. Sam Darnold playing way out of, way over his payroll, essentially. Who knows what's going to happen there? But June, does Sam Darnold get paid next year by Minnesota, or do they franchise tag him and work this little QB whisper of a coach that Sean O'Connell is?
That's a good question. I haven't put so much thought into how they're going to do it. They will be paying Sam Darnold one way or the other. Like, I think that they go into the offseason with the hopes and plans to pay him and do a deal. However, at the end of the day, they're going to probably do what's best and what they can do. Um, but the market, I don't know what the number is for that franchise tag. That franchise tag has got to be
I believe
$53 million.
I actually believe it's 42. 42.
Oh,
That's still
okay.
good. Hey, man.
Oh
You
yeah,
get
because it's the
42
market. It's
mil.
not like highest paid. It's what the value is. Okay, so I mean that's still a lot of bread, only for 1 year, obviously. But like I said, I think that they're gonna try to work a deal out. If I'm Minnesota, I want Sam Darnold to be the quarterback for the next 4 years. Doing what he did this year, and so if I can get that at a reasonable rate, which is fair to him and us, absolutely we do that. Having JJ McCarthy, it's interesting. You can like trade him for value, that we don't know what his true value is. And you can try to say like he's still got some first round worthiness to him. Um, or you can just like make him a fucking backup, right? And do the Jordan Love thing. And he can go that route. And it can get tricky. But you know what they say, like having two quarterbacks is like having no quarterback. And so I don't know that JJ McCarthy is going to be around if Sam Darnold pens a new deal. So, and I don't think that they should keep him around either. I think that they should do right by him and let him start his NFL future now. But same time it's like don't just give him up for nothing at the end of the day. I think you muted.
Damn, I was really trying to do that in the first episode of the season. I do think that he has some first round worthiness to him still. I don't know if you're going to be able to get everything that you gave away to move up that one slot to get him. I also don't think that you should trade him. I mean, I get that you mentioned Green Bay and their you know QBU type of situation where every 10 years they just crank another one out. This is the age gap between JJ and Sam Darnold isn't as large as the age gap between Green Bay QBs typically is. So like you were saying, it could get a little tricky. But I think you keep him. Sean O'Connell's been able to. He hasn't gotten far in the playoffs, but he's been able to make QBs get his worth out of the QBs that have been under his helm.
Yeah.
So I say, hey, why not keep JJ? Keep him under Sam Darnold. I'm sure that he might be able to learn something from Sam Darnold. I mean, this is
No, yeah.
we're this is what I mean. Like we're seeing a Sam Darnold that we not haven't necessarily seen before. So you don't know what let's call this his rookie year of being good. You don't know what the sophomore year is going to look like either.
It's a little crazy, but
you don't know what it's gonna. Is this
hey, 2 years
for Sam
ago,
Darnold?
the Panthers quarterback room was Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. So I feel you. You know what I'm saying?
You know, I mean, he's gonna get paid regardless, whether they give him an extension or they franchise tag him. I mean, I'm not a GM, so
You know who shouldn't be a GM either? At least for the Colts, Chris Ballard. How about that?
Hey, you know who shouldn't be a GM for the Giants? hey, 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 hey.
But
And
but I do have to go with this Colts thing real quick. By the way, Adam Schefter tweeted 2 hours ago saying that the Jets completed an interview for their general manager vacancy with ESPN analyst Louis Riddick. And I hope that within these few days, it's not going to be, but the Colts fire general manager Chris Ballard. If we lose on Sunday, and we're playing the Jaguars, so if we lose, honestly, just blow it up. But after the game, win or lose, I want to see Gus Bradley fired, and I want to see Chris Ballard fired. And hopefully, within the coming days after that, you'll see a tweet from Adam Schefter saying that the Colts have interviewed ESPN analyst Louis Riddick. I do think he'd be a good candidate for the job. I'm not saying he's the guy for the job, but definitely deserves an interview if we part ways with our GM. Which at this point, I kind of see it as how the hell do you not do it, especially if you're reading the room, checking the temperature with alumni, and the current players in the locker room and the state of the culture in the walls. Mr. Irsay has to hate that his former players are lashing out this bad we got Pat McAfee blowing it up on Twitter and then, obliterating Jonathan Taylor on the show. And I'm not all the way mad at Pat McAfee. I was upset at what he did to the Anthony Richardson situation and how he blew it up and made everybody kind of stare a little harder. But at the same time, I could appreciate it because it kind of just exposed what's going on and the lack of, accountability there is and we just started learning about all these bad tendencies and habits and things that were going along in the locker room. And so you might lose me here in a second, so prepare. But yeah, it's just pretty sad. So we need to clean not house because head coach can probably stay, but we need to get a new GM so that we can figure what we want.
Yo, shout out to Kev. I said Sean O'Connell like 3 times, and it's Kevin O'Connell, head coach for the Minnesota Vikings. Definitely got to put some respect on that young man's name. Whoops, my bad. Won't happen again. It actually did feel kind of weird saying Sean O'Connell. I'm not sure where that originated. We're gonna work on getting June back in a second. I want to move forward to the Week 18 preview. Last week of the regular season, we have some Saturday football coming up in 2 days on the 4th. Browns at Ravens, Bengals at Steelers. Both these games interesting for their own reason. Bro, you're funny. The rookie year of being good is nuts. Both these Saturday games are interesting in my opinion, for their own reasons. Browns at Ravens. Baltimore, once again, laying a huge number, 20.5 points at home versus a divisional foe in Cleveland. And the Bengals on the road favorites at -2.5 in Pittsburgh versus another division foe, AFC North, in full effect this Saturday afternoon and evening. Hey, listen, I know that the Ravens covered the 19 points against the Giants. I'm totally aware of that. 20.5 points. I get that you're at home, so Vegas is saying that you're literally 23.5 points better than this divisional foe. And I get it. The Browns have won 3 games this year. 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 games this year. And I still think that as I get June back up here in 1 second, that those 20.5 points, man. And I said it against the Giants. I say, hey, I don't know about laying 19.5 on any team. And the Ravens covered that, June. I'm talking about the AFC North showdowns that we
I'm
have on
here. I'm with
on
you.
this
I'm
Saturday
listening.
football.
I'm right with you.
20.5 points,
I think
June.
I wouldn't put money on it, but I think they can cover. And
Oh
it
my
just goes to like
goodness.
what they've done to bad teams. And the Browns, they were a bad team when they played them earlier this season. Granted, I think that was like week 6 or week 7. It wasn't like the Ravens have this flowing offense that's just near perfect for the last few months, and their defense has tuned it up and stopped things. I think James is going to have a really tough time on the road in Baltimore. This isn't a playoff game for Baltimore, but it's damn sure getting them ready for the playoffs. It's putting them at a higher seed, possibly, and it's a division game. They're going to be ready to go. I expect nobody to hold anything back. And so yeah, I do think, -20.5 is crazy. 21 points is wild. Especially in a divisional game. We already know how these games typically go. You see how my normal take is coming back now? Like, all right, down to earth, down to earth. It is pretty ridiculous. But no. In all honesty, if you have some play money, I would take the 20.5
Little sprinkle.
because Jameis Winston is liable to just do some shit. He might throw for 250. He might throw for 3 interceptions, and I think that he'll throw at least one. So yeah, don't get mad at me if you lose though.
Hey, and shout out to Brill in the chat. Oh no, I'm sorry. Shout out to Kevin. Shout out to Brill and Kevin in the chat, but Kevin in the
No,
chat.
take my shout out back. Not Brill.
Kevin saying, and Bailey Zappi is starting for Cleveland this weekend, and we saw what he did in New
Okay.
England,
All
or
right, all right,
what he couldn't do in
all right,
New England for
all
that
right.
matter.
We're definitely slamming the 20 and a half, and I'll put my money that they can do it.
Hey man, the other Saturday game that we got, I was mentioning Bengals at Steelers. Bengals 2.5 point favorites on the road against a divisional foe. Bengals need to win this game, and they need some help from Kansas City, and they need some help from who does Miami play this last
Denver, I
week?
believe.
Denver.
Oh well, that's the Kansas City game.
Yeah, so they need some help from Kansas City to beat Denver, and then they need the Jets to beat the Dolphins in order for the Bengals to get into the playoffs. If Denver wins, there'll be three AFC West teams in the playoffs, which to me is kind of wild. But Bengals need this game. June, how do you see this game playing out with the Bengals on the road being 2.5 point favorites?
I think it's going to test Pittsburgh's offense. You know, we're going to see their last showing before the playoffs start about what they really can be in the playoffs offensively, because the last few games they've played a lot of good teams and they've been missing George Pickens for I think 2 of them. He came back and, you know, there's a difference, but it didn't just change the world. And so they're still struggling offensively. They have to figure out what's going to get them able to score more points than this Bengals team because this team likes to, you know, put them on the board. So if they think they can win this game scoring 22 points, you know, it's not happening. And we saw how this game went a few weeks ago in Cincinnati. I believe this game's in Pittsburgh. Am I right?
It is in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, the game was in Cincinnati a few weeks ago, and Pittsburgh played really good. Cincinnati played good, but Pittsburgh played good. And my thing is, there's desperation, you know, and there should be a little bit of desperation for Pittsburgh because of what we've seen from them over the last few weeks and how this is a divisional opponent. They should want to win this game, you know, and have that extra pride, but they had to score 44 points to beat the Bengals last time. You know, Joe Burrow put up 38. I don't know that that's going to be the case this game again, but I know that they're going to have to score more than 30 points to beat the Bengals. So, do I see that happening? Yeah, there's guys like Highsmith and TJ Watt on that team. You know what I mean? And Minka Fitzpatrick. So let's not get it twisted. But we started this episode saying people think Joe Burrow's the MVP, and he shows us week in and week out why, if his team was a better team, he would be in that conversation. So it's hard to say Pittsburgh's going to just go ahead and win this game because they're at home. Pittsburgh won on the road last time, but I do think Pittsburgh ultimately comes out with this victory here. They have to end their season with some pride, being as though they're losers of the last 1, 2, 3, and then they beat up on the Browns and the Steelers and the Browns and the Ravens. Oh shit! Okay. All right. That Ravens game, I still can't get over how the Ravens lost that game with the 2-point conversion. That was crazy.
Yeah, Lamar was crazy tight that game after pause. He was mad. He was mad as hell. I remember that was crazy. Hey, I want to take this over to Tampa Bay, who I mentioned briefly. They are playing the last game of the season against the Saints, who have been eliminated from playoff contention. This game, important to Tampa Bay to make sure Atlanta stays off of their heels. Tampa Bay absolutely wants to host a home playoff game. The last time that Baker Mayfield saw New Orleans, he put up 325 yards on them, 4 tutties, 3 picks, 4 tutties though.
What? 4 tutties though.
In a 51-27 rout of New Orleans. Now, this game is obviously at home in Tampa Bay, divisional opponent. Tampa Bay needs this game. I talk a lot about those teams towards the end of the season. I got nothing to play for, but that love to ruin people's playoff seeds. Is New Orleans going to be one of those
No,
teams this year, June?
no, they don't have a quarterback to do it. It's not worth talking about. No, and we might see one of those 5 touchdown Baker Mayfield performances again. So because
Hey
he
man,
hates them just as much.
the Giants traveled to Philly to play the Eagles last game of the season. Saquon will be sitting when he is 101 yards away from breaking the all-time rushing record. A man of the people. When he last time he saw the Giants, he was about to break the single game rushing record, and he said, "Hey, you know what, Coach? Let the little guys eat, man. Let them eat. I'm good, man. I'm
Yeah,
good." Man of the people. He kind of had the same response when asked about the decision to sit this week. He said, "Hey, I'm not really trying to jeopardize the team. I'm not looking that much into it. I know what the value behind it is, the historical factor, but there's bigger goals at hand, and that's to win a ring." June, would you be pissed if you were Saquon and you wasn't allowed to play this week?
absolutely. I mean, I know you. Yeah, everybody's for the team. Not everybody, but good guys are for the team. Saquon wants to win, but if we're keeping it a stack, it's way more realistic that Saquon gets 102 yards, 101 yards, and breaks that record, ends the game safe and sound, and the Eagles still go to the playoffs, than
Yeah.
Saquon playing in the game, getting hurt, and not being able to break the record, doing it for no reason. Now, I'm not saying he should be playing. As a fan, of course, I want to see him play. As someone who thinks records are meant to be broken and guys should have their opportunities, especially when there's a game on the schedule too, of course I do. But I'm not Nick Sirianni, and I don't have the city of Philadelphia down my neck, like with everything I do. And so if you guys want to be mad at me for keeping my guy healthy and spoiling his opportunity at a record, I'll take that over if I ever heard a twisted ankle about Saquon Barkley before the playoffs. I mean, that's fireable offense. So you're not going to play with your job if you're Nick Sirianni, and that's kind of what it comes down to at the end of the day. He wants Saquon to beat the record. Saquon would beat the record. I mean, it's the fucking Giants. It's 100 yards. He can do it in 3 quarters, but they want to win the championship, and it's good that they have that attitude and that laser kind of sharp focus on what's ahead of them. But at the same time, it's like, damn, I would have liked to see Saquon get out there and that's something that we only seen 8 backs or 9 backs now with Saquon rush for 2,000 yards. That's
Yep.
crazy. It's crazy. And so him having the opportunity with the whole 4 quarters of football left to break a record that's stand for what, over 30 years, shit. So
Hey, do the Bengals get the help from
no,
Kansas City?
Jets are not beating the Dolphins. Jets
what
are not
about
beating the
what
Dolphins.
about what about Denver are 10
Jets
and a
haven't won
half.
at MetLife all season, by the way, and so they're not going to get their first win. They are
Oh
not the Giants,
shit.
and they are not playing the Colts.
Oh shit. Shit. And Denver 10.5 point favorites against Kansas City at home. Obviously, Kansas City resting the starters. Yeah, you think Denver can give Kansas City a second loss of the season? And
I think they do. I think they do. Carson
ooh.
Wentz. I don't see how they pull that off. Carson Wentz. Let's be real, man. In Denver, no.
A lot of fun football. The last game that I really want to talk about, because we'll talk about the Sunday night Vikings Lions game on Sunday afternoon. Seahawks Rams 9-7 Seahawks, second in the division, against on the road in Los Angeles versus the division leader Rams that are 10-6. Seahawks 6-1 on the road. Rams 5-3 at home. Seattle 6.5 point favorites on the road. Do they force a tiebreaker, June?
I think. Ooh, man, this is tough. This is a tough one. I don't know who wins this game. You know, the Rams, I think, got the momentum going into this game. They've been playing really good. But Seattle, Seattle's got some gamers over there, and I think that this game's gonna come down to a couple plays. I'm gonna go Seattle in this game. I'm gonna go with
Ooh.
Seattle in this game, and yeah, it's gonna take a lot of grit. This game's gonna be tough. We take Seattle.
June, because I'm actually not 100% sure on how this works. If they both end up 10-7, they'll both be 4-2 in the division. They'll both be 6-6 in conference play. What
Um,
what is the
that's
tiebreaker
gonna
after
go
that?
down to. I think it goes down to.
And they would have split the season too, 1-1.
Yeah, it goes down to some sort of winning percentage versus an opponent, a certain opponent, and so I think the the Jets have 2 wins at home. Kev was trying. Okay. I'm sorry, Kev. The Jets have been playing such bad football that I thought they never won a game after that. That's more so my fault. Um, but I do appreciate the fact check. And also, Jolie in the chat, she said Eagles minus 25 and a half. If you're feeling frisky,
Yo, that's crazy.
that's pretty fucking crazy. That's all I'm gonna say. But I don't even know where I was with that one because so going back to this is LA versus Seattle, correct?
Yeah, LA versus Seattle.
Um, I'm sorry, I don't even know what the question was you asked me. I saw that minus 25 and a half.
Do
I'm
they
like, oh
force a
shit.
tiebreaker? And then we were trying to figure out what the tiebreaker actually was because they would be dead even in
Oh,
all
right. No, yeah.
categories.
I think it would be some sort of winning percentage because the Pittsburgh's there's another division that was up for grabs and they said, "Well, we'll explain it." And they said some sort of like winning percentage against a certain team. So, it's very technical. I'll put it like that.
Joe, you got anything in the NBA that you want to get to? I know I mentioned the Heat kind of getting hot after some minor controversies, but NBA is getting started. It's getting fun. I mean, Wemby and Chris Paul are clicking. They're looking good. Chris Paul is looking like he's really taking on that mentorship role that he has in San Antonio right now. Uh, Russell Westbrook just hunting for a ring right now. Literally, like I think he gets a ring and he retires. Personally, I think he's out of here. Anything in the NBA you want to get into?
No, I don't. I don't know if Jimmy Butler's going to be on my team after this All Star break, and it's looking like he probably not. And we're losing to the Pacers 104-79 at home right now. This is on the second night of a back to back where Jimmy Butler didn't play in the fourth quarter for whatever reason. Tyler Hill's having an All Star phenomenal season, but it's nights like this where it makes me feel like we should just blow it all up and figure it out from there. So in the grand scheme of things, big world basketball. Shout out to the Thunder, man. Thunder playing amazing basketball. They're winners of their last like 16 or 17, something like that. And Isaiah Hartenstein has been a big contributor there. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is my MVP if you were to stop the season right now. And I got any honorable mentions to talk about in basketball? I mean, I do want to say shout out to, Jaden Ivey. Prayers up to him because he was having a great season, his
Yeah.
best one yet, and he got a nasty injury last night. Gogi Batazzi for the Magic has been playing really good basketball down there. Paul George and Joel Embiid can't figure that shit out.
Yo,
Um,
Batazi's fucked up a couple of my tickets in the last like
he's
month.
been going crazy,
Yeah.
Batazzi. Yeah, bro, and the Knicks been playing really good. Knicks been playing really good as well. I think they're like winners of the
Bodega
last
Cat.
eight straight games, whatever nickname they got for him. I mean, whatever he's doing, he's figured something out because he's been hot. I think he just won Eastern Conference Player of the Month. Shout out to Cat. Uh, Celtics kind of cooled down a little bit. They're still a good ass team, still a team to beat. I'm wanting to see what Denver's gonna do amid the trade deadline because I don't think that's a championship team there.
Yeah.
And I know that they still have the coaching. They still got an, MVP caliber player and a few great role players in that system. that they can figure something out. But I do think a mix up is going to be necessary, much like the Lakers are trying to do with acquiring Finney Smith for D'Angelo Russell. I think that works both ways. He's going to be comfortable in Brooklyn. He's already played there, and they're not going to ask him to be anybody's hero, and he can play more free. On the flip side, Dorian Finney Smith is going to be a great wing defensive addition, especially when they get Jared Vanderbilt back. Yeah, so Reeves as well. Like Reeves looks like you don't want to keep him at point guard, but he can run some point guard. He had a career high in assists last week or earlier this week. I don't know when it was. I think it was, matter of fact, yeah, it was probably like Monday or so. But yeah, he had like 16 assists and a game winner. That might have been
The game winner.
Christmas night. Was that Christmas night?
I think so. If it wasn't Christmas night, it was the like the night before or something like that, or 2 nights before that. I love the post game response that he gave. He was like, "Hey, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. That last play was supposed to go to Braun, but I saw something."
And LeBron turned 40. Sorry.
Facts. Braun told him to go. Yo, Braun's like, "Yo, go tell him that that was supposed to be for me real quick." And
That's funny.
That's how you play the game, you young whippersnapper.
That's it, man. So.
Hey, man. In other news, the Duke Blue Devils basketball team undefeated at the crib. I mean, our boy seems to be finding his footing. He's looking good. Flag is, I mean, he's waving, essentially. You know what I'm saying? He's looking good. Duke is undefeated at home. We get SMU next, I think, in about a day or so. And then, the schedule, we're in conference play at that point. You know how the ACC gets down in basketball. A lot of MLB signings that we'll get to next week. We'll talk about that. I mean, I ain't got too much else as we cross over this 57-minute mark. June, you have any last words you want to get by?
Nah, man. The NFL should just do right by LJ, give him the MVP again. And Pat, if you're gonna trade Jimmy, just trade him. If we can get De'Aaron Fox in this building, I'll be a happy camper. Pair him up with Bam and Tyler. And let's see what goes from there. But as far as anything else, man, I'm glad everybody had a great end of the year. You're back in the States. You ain't get roped up, in the lands over there. We'll talk about your trip more so next episode. And, missing Kev. Hopefully Kev will be able to join us as well then.
1,000%. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, as we cross over this 58-minute mark, this has been your number one sports talk show, All Things Sports, on the number one sports network, brought to you by Small Town Productions. The ticker up top, brought to you by ESPN Bet. If you tapped in on the live, we appreciate you so much. If you're tapping in after the fact on anywhere you can find your podcast, we thank you so much for taking time out of your beautiful day. We will see you all Sunday